You know, when you think of King Solomon, two things probably come to mind, right? Building the Great Temple and his own incredible palace. But here's the thing. As massive as those projects were, they were really just the opening act. Today, we're going to dive into what this legendary king did after all that construction dust finally settled. So imagine this. You've just completed two of the most famous building projects in history. What's your next move? Do you kick back and relax, or do you pivot from building monuments to building a full-blown empire? To really get a sense of what's coming, you have to understand the commitment that came before it. 20 years. Just let that sink in. 2 entire decades dedicated to building the temple and his palace. With that incredible foundation laid, Solomon was ready to think bigger, much bigger. He was ready to take his vision nationwide. So, Solomon's next chapter, it was defined by a massive kingdom-wide construction boom. He wasn't just the king of Jerusalem anymore. He became the master builder of an entire nation, literally forging his kingdom in stone. And the sheer scope of this work was just immense. I mean, look at this. He's rebuilding villages, capturing new territories, building outposts way out in the desert. He's setting up a whole network of supply cities and military bases for his chariots and horses. This wasn't just building for the sake of it. This was a systematic plan to consolidate power and defend the whole nation. And this one little detail right here tells you everything about the strategic mind behind it all. Solomon didn't just build randomly. He picked key locations, like Upper and Lower Beth Horon, and fortified them heavily. We're talking walls, gates, bars, the whole shebang. These were strategic choke points, and locking them down was a clear move to secure his kingdom's borders and control the trade routes. Okay, but a building boom on this scale needs a massive workforce, right? And this is where the story of Solomon's kingdom gets a lot more complex. It's where we see the stark human cost of forging an empire. Solomon's kingdom ran on a very clear and very divided system of labor. The descendants of the non-Israelite peoples who were still living in the land, the Hittites, Amorites, and others, they were conscripted. They were forced into slave labor. But in total contrast, the Israelites themselves were not. They served as soldiers, as commanders, and as officials in his government. And the source text adds this short but incredibly powerful little detail about the forced labor, as it is to this day. That simple phrase implies this wasn't just some temporary measure for a few projects. No, this was a permanent institution. It was a foundational part of how the kingdom actually worked. And who was overseeing this whole system? Well, it was an Israelite administrative class. The source actually mentions 250 chief officials who were supervising the work. That gives you a real sense of the organized, bureaucratic structure it took to manage these huge projects and the labor force that built them. But building an empire wasn't the only thing on Solomon's mind. He was also meticulously focused on his religious duties. See, he wasn't just a king of commerce and construction, he was also the nation's spiritual leader. We get this absolutely brilliant glimpse into his thinking from a very personal decision. When he brought his wife, Pharaoh's daughter, to live with him, he actually built a whole new palace for her, away from the original city of David. And his reason? He said the original palace was holy ground because the Ark of the Covenant had been there, and he felt it was just not appropriate for her to live in such a sacred place. His piety wasn't just personal, though. It was institutional. He strictly followed the daily requirements for offerings and made sure the entire kingdom celebrated the 3 great annual festivals commanded by Moses: the Festival of Unleavened Bread, the Festival of Weeks, and the Festival of Tabernacles. And what's so crucial to understand here is that Solomon saw himself as a guardian of tradition. He wasn't trying to invent some new system. He was carefully, precisely implementing the religious structure that his own father David had laid out. He appointed the priests to their divisions, the Levites for praise, the gatekeepers for the temple, all to ensure order and continuity. Now, all of this, the building, the military, the religious festivals, you know what that requires? Immense wealth. And that brings us to the final glittering pillar of Solomon's empire, his ambitious push into international trade, specifically the quest for gold. To bankroll his kingdom, Solomon launched this incredible maritime expedition. He personally went down to the coast and partnered up with Hiram, the king of Tyre. Hiram provided state-of-the-art ships and, even more importantly, expert sailors who actually knew the sea. Together, their crews sailed to this distant, almost mythical land called Ophir. And the payoff for this high-risk adventure, it was absolutely staggering.
The fleet came back with 450 talents of gold. To give you some perspective, that's over 15 tons of pure gold. It's an almost unimaginable fortune, and it's the wealth that would fuel the golden age of his kingdom.
So what do we see? A king of incredible vision. He's a master builder, a devout spiritual leader, and a razor-sharp international businessman. His reign truly was a golden age, there's no doubt about it, defined by wealth and security and faith like never before. But as we've seen, that golden age was built on a really complex foundation of brilliant strategy, deep piety, global trade, and the institution of forced labor.